Why your family loves to share bad news and how that affects you on all levels, more especially mentally. So, I didn't know that this was considered as part of a narcissistic trait. And I always like to emphasize that when I speak of narcissism on all my episodes, I'm talking about a narcissistic personality disorder, a mental illness, not the kind of narcissism where we just like seeing somebody likes to look at themselves in the mirror too much. We're talking about something that's a disorder and something that can be abusive and traumatic to other people. And I've experienced that through my narcissistic sister and my mother. The other time I listened to a podcast called The Emotional Armor, I believe. And it is this lady who talks about narcissism. She also has a narcissistic parent. And when you listen to a lot of these podcasts or YouTube videos or read up about narcissism, you start to uncover a lot of things. So the podcast is actually called My Emotional Armor, if you would like to check it out. And she pointed out something that I hadn't found in a lot of podcasts and YouTube videos when I listened to them, because this personality disorder is so layered. It is so layered. It has so many layers to it. And to me, when I speak of narcissism, I think I said this in another episode, I'm speaking of emotional abuse, because I don't see how someone could be narcissistic and not abusive and not emotionally abusive. I don't know if they also tend to be physically abusive, but my sister and my mother haven't and have never been physically abusive, but they definitely have been emotionally abusive. And for me, narcissism is just equivalent to emotional abuse. And I don't know if it's because of what I've been through. So to me, the two are just linked. So in this particular episode of My Emotional Armor, she was talking about how her own narcissistic parent loved to share bad news. And this was a first for me to hear that this could be part of narcissism, because my mother specifically, she loves to share bad news. Just yesterday, she was telling us about a prophecy that had come to pass, that Prophet TB Joshua, a great man of God, that he had said, may his soul rest in peace, that he had said a while ago. And that seems to be the case with a lot of his prophecies. Uh, they come to pass like years to come, which is not surprising, because a lot of prophets in the Old Testament prophesied about the coming of the Messiah, who is Christ Jesus, but they didn't even live to see it. So it always just makes me curious how people think prophecies work when, they question the fact that it hasn't come to pass, yada yada. But I get some of the questions. But this is not the point. So she was talking about how one of the prophecies that Prophet TB Joshua said had come to pass. And it was, I don't know, I think maybe like a fight or arguments or disagreements between Israel and another country. I'm not particularly sure exactly, because I've learned to kind of tune off when she speaks about those things. And the reason I do that, my mother listens to a lot of prophecies from different prophets. And she always comes back and tells us all these prophecies. I believe in prophecies. I believe that God has men and women out there that he has appointed as prophets. I believe that there are people out there who have the true calling of prophecy. What I don't like, what my mother does with all these prophecies, is like she goes out, like she seeks to find prophecies that are just like bad. It's crazy, because I don't think that's her intention. I don't think she's just like on YouTube or on social media, just looking out for like just typing away for bad prophecies. But because she loves sharing bad news, I think she attracts that to her. So she finds these prophets on YouTube or wherever, and they say things like, okay, this is what is going to happen in 10 years, or this is what is going to happen to so and so. Like the prophecies are just normally the ones, or at least the ones she shares, are not good, you know? And I'm fine with God warning us about something that's not good that's going to happen, because shouldn't we expect that from our Father to warn us, The Bible says he doesn't do anything without telling his people. So he's keeping true to his word. But it's the love that my mother has in sharing the bad news. Like she loves just, it's almost exciting to her, you know? Even though she's not going to say, I'm happy because I'm sharing this bad news, but it's almost exciting when she has bad news to share. And I remember, because they are strangely, to me, it's really strange. They are strangely people like this, because I remember when I was in varsity, one of my roommates, there was a plane crash, and I can't seem to remember where it had happened, but like it was news all around the world. And a video circulated of, like, I think people were inside the plane making a video just as they were about to crash, and they were screaming, they were crying. It was just really horrific. And this one roommate of mine was just like going around showing this video. In a way, these kind of people, they act like they're sympathetic, but they just kind of like excited to share that. Look at this video. Like, I don't know how to explain this. I hope you are getting what I'm saying, because in as much as that roommate of mine wasn't like smiling from ear to ear about sharing the video, but somehow, she was excitedly sharing the video. And for me, I can't stomach things like that. Like I didn't even really finish watching the video. I can't stomach things that involve like hurt, pain, blood. Like I can't stomach that. I can't take it. I discovered last year that I'm actually a highly sensitive person, which is like a total thing. Look it up if you haven't heard of it. I discovered that I'm a highly sensitive person. So certain things really affect me more than others. So seeing that type of video where people are crying for their lives, like it's not a movie. It was real life. It wasn't a movie. And for me, it was weird that she was just going around, like almost like excitedly so, showing this video. It's like those kind of people, they just happy to share the news, but without really understanding the depth and the significance of the news that they're sharing. Like she was just so excited to show this video that she had found of people crying and screaming for their dear lives as they were about to crash and die. She was not really appreciating the significance of that. She was not appreciating how horrific that was. Instead, she was just happy to show people, the video that she had. But obviously, at the same time, still acting sympathetic, like, oh my goodness, look, guys, what happened? But you can tell that, she's just excited to show everybody this. And I think that's the same thing with my mother. She finds these prophecies, and sometimes it's not prophecies, sometimes it's just news about somebody, sometimes it's just news about what's happening around the world. She loves sharing those news. And oh my goodness, because honestly, I think I might live this world without fully understanding my mother, because I just really don't understand. I somehow I even think, is this just a narcissistic personality disorder, or is there something else? Like, is there something else that could describe why she's the way she is? Because here's what she'll do. Whether she's sharing a prophecy that, speaks about something horrible that's going to happen in the future, or she's talking about something she saw on Facebook or heard on the news, what she will often do, she would then, like, if maybe you react in a way that's like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this is gonna happen, that is so scary. Because, for instance, if she shares, maybe, and this is just an example, she shares that maybe in like 10 years to come, a prophecy said that there will be no food, just like how in the Bible it was usually prophesied that, like, there's going to be no rain, or there's going to be famine, all of those things. So if you then respond and react in a way, like, oh my goodness, that is so scary, like, we're going to have no food, and like maybe anxiety takes over you because you're just like scared, because she's sharing this prophecy that is obviously gonna bother you. And then what she will do, she will take this higher position of being like, no, don't be afraid. Don't fear. We have the Lord. It's the most annoying thing. If you have never experienced this, it might sound like I am being crazy. But what's annoying is that she loves sharing these news. And then when you respond and react accordingly, she wants to be in this position of like being positive. Like, no, she's not scared. No, she's just positive. But when she was sharing the news, that was the reaction and response she was actually provoking. That was the reaction that she actually wanted. That's exactly how she wanted you to respond, because you can tell it from content to tone as she was sharing the news, that is the response that she was provoking, igniting within you. Because obviously you're going to be shocked, you're going to be scared, you're going to be worried that, oh my goodness, we might not have food like in the next 10 years. And then when you react that way, she wants to assume this position of being positive, of having faith, of trusting God. And then all of a sudden, like, the tables are turned. Now you're the bad guy somehow for feeling scared because you're a Christian. You shouldn't be worried. But, like, why did you share these news with me? How did you expect me to respond? How did, like, when somebody goes to the doctor and maybe they find out that they have cancer or whatever chronic disease, and the doctor tells them that they have a month or a couple of months to live. And then obviously when you respond and react in shock because you just found out that you just have only a couple of months to live. Like, would it be sensible? Would it be normal for the doctor to then say, oh, don't worry, just have faith, be positive? Like, the doctor fully understands what they have just told you is shocking you. Maybe tell me to not worry after I fully process this. Give me a chance. Because what you just told me is life altering news. What you just told me is scary. Allow me to be scared. Allow me to react. And my mother does this crazy thing, and I hate to use that word, but honestly, it just feels crazy to me sometimes. Then she takes this position of like, she's not worried. And this is the thing that I've just always noticed about my mother. She always loves to take the higher position. Like, just, she's not, yeah, she's worried about something, but she doesn't want to be in this position where she shows you that she's worried about it. But at the same time, when she shares the news or whatever, she sounds worried about it. Because even when she shares like the prophecies, it's the most confusing thing ever. It truly is. And this refers back to what I've said in a couple of other episodes, that my mother inflicts toxic positivity and toxic Christianity, where she's just saying, don't worry, don't fear. And the Bible does say, don't fear. I'm not disregarding that. I believe that. I believe what the word of God says. What I do not believe is what my mother does. Okay? Like, I just, It's annoying because sometimes I feel like I can't even get the words out and explain it right because she confuses me so much. She tells you bad news and instantly wants you to snap out of it. It's toxic positivity, it's toxic Christianity, it's toxicity. That's what it is. Allow me to process. You know that song that says, allow me to enjoy myself. Like, allow me to process this. Allow me to just digest what you've just said to me because it's shocking. I'd like to believe, I don't know, I stand to be corrected, but I'd like to believe that even if God told me some major news, I mean, I even think maybe even with prophets, when he speaks to them and tells them something so major, something like maybe not having food in the next couple of years, I can only imagine that they also sometimes left in a state of shock. And I think God understands that. If God just spoke to me today, whether through a dream, a vision, or I heard his voice and he told me that you have a couple of days to live, I just, I really wanna I really want to believe in the God that's understanding of my emotions, doesn't nurse my emotions. Don't get me wrong, because I think we live in a generation where people think just God nurses their emotions. And that's why we have weaklings of Christians. That's just the best way to explain it, where people think they can just sin and do whatever because God is so understanding and loving. But at the same time, God is understanding and loving. Do you know what I mean? He's not that understanding and loving to a point where he can just allow you to do whatever and you be whatever and you just be a weak and lukewarm in your Christianity. But he is understanding and loving in the sense that he knows that things hurt. He knows that things are hard. He knows that you are being challenged. He knows the trials, tribulations, and temptations that you are feeling. He's understanding in that sense. So I'd like to believe that he would also be understanding that if he just told me that I'm going to live a couple of days, Lord, I hear your word when you say I should fear, but right now you just told me scary news. And I just need to digest that. Okay, maybe in a couple of days, then I'll just like start to meditate on the word and just be like, okay, don't be scared. Like make the best use of this time that you have on earth, since the Lord has told you that it's only a couple of days that you have. But I'd like to believe that my father would be understanding in the sense that I just need to process the shocking news that you just told me. And my mother is not like that. Also, how this affects you, and I think like because I've started to emotionally distance myself from my family because I still live with them. So I they there can't be physical distance for me. So now I've just emotionally distanced myself. Also, with her sharing the bad news, it drains you. It's one thing that, because now I'm no longer reactive, because I used to react naturally so, because you've just told me shocking or bad news. But now, because I know this is her style, I no longer react. I just listen to her. I sit there and I just listen to her. I don't react. I just maybe chime in with one word as to say, okay, or that's bad, or I am no longer reactive when it comes to the things she says. I no longer show or express fear, and not only because I don't want her to start saying, oh, don't worry, and she takes the higher position of being positive and having faith and not being scared, but also because I don't want to worry about that. You know what I mean? Like, if God says there's not going to be food in 10 years, I like me worrying about it till, for the next 10 years is not really going to help. If God is telling us that, it means we need to pray more, we need to take action, we need to save more, We need to maybe grow more food. We need to be more wise. We need to be more vigilant in terms of just how we use our food, how we produce our food, how we use our money. So instead of worrying about it, I'm just maybe gonna do something about it. So now I'm no longer reactive for those two reasons. I don't want to give her the pleasure of responding the way that she had hoped I would respond, respond in shock, respond in fear. And also because I just don't want to worry about it. If God said it, then it means He was just warning us and, wanting us to take action or do something about it. Then that's what I'm going to do. I'm not just going to sit here and worry about it and then give my mother the pleasure of, her feeling like she's not scared. And I'm the one who's scared. Because it seems like she shares this bad news so that she can just make us scared and then she can prove herself not to be scared. It's just the craziest thing. I don't understand it. It makes no sense. Why does she do it? But she does it. She does it all the time. And one of the things that I've heard over and over again when it comes to narcissistic personality disorder is that it gets worse with age. And I'm noticing that with my mother. She's just not getting better. She's getting more stubborn. Um, her thinking that she's right, that she's always right and always needs to be agreed with, it's getting worse. Her thinking that she can control us, it's getting worse because now she sees that we are adults, we have our own opinions, and it's getting harder to control us and manipulate us and emotionally abuse us. So I think I often see her just struggling with that battle. And one time when we were arguing, she actually just verbatimly said the words, I no longer can control you. But even as children, like as a parent, it's not a matter of controlling your child. It's a matter of guiding your child, raising your child, monitoring your child. But like you are not meant to control your child. Like if God Almighty, our creator, does not control us. Like why would God give that right to our parents to control us? I mean, for me, even her just saying that, like now that we're old, she can no longer control us. It's crazy. You were never meant to control us, even as kids. You were meant to raise us, guide us, parent us, teach us certain things, but control? No, never. It was never one of your responsibilities. Just like it's no one's responsibility or duty or role in my life to control me. Not even God. If God controlled us, everybody would be a believer. Everybody would believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God who came and died for us and rose again, and now he's seated at the right hand side of the Father. Everybody would believe that. Everybody would, excuse me, maybe let me not even say believe. Everybody would have no choice but to worship Jesus Christ. You know, like even if you don't believe, well, sucks for you because God controls you. So you have no other choice but to admit that Jesus Christ is Lord. But He doesn't. The reason we make so many wrong choices in our lives, it's because God doesn't control us. If He did, I think in a way it would kind of work in our favor because we wouldn't make the wrong decisions that we make. But then that would take away free will. You know, God doesn't control us. The God who knows everything from beginning to end, the God of all eternities, the ancient of days, He doesn't control us. Then why does my mother get to control me? Never mind your husband, because like that's even like a whole nother issue that I think a lot of women face, like men controlling them. It's like God doesn't control you, your mother doesn't control you, your husband doesn't control you, nobody controls you. And for me, it was crazy to even just hear her saying that she thinks because now we are adults, she can no longer control us. Lady, You never had the right to control us. And she did control us by manipulation, emotionally abusing us, belittling us, making us feel small, making us react in a way that left her feeling superior, because that's just another thing with this whole bad news sharing vibe of hers. She feels superior when, excuse me, she feels superior when she takes that position of saying, don't fear. It's like she comes to her children and tells them the bad news, and then takes the superior position of just letting them know that they shouldn't fear, they shouldn't worry, they should have faith because we believe in God. Like, why did you share the bad news? Why? Like, what was my reaction supposed to be? Was I not supposed to be shocked about the bad news that you just told me? Like, I'm not supposed to just feel anything with what you just told me. It's frustrating, it's annoying, it's confusing. It's confusing living with my mother. It has been all my life, just that at the time I didn't even know what it was. So for me to discover this year that it's a personality disorder made so much sense, because it is a disorder of some sorts. It's definitely a disorder. There's just a disorder in her mind. And I wanna be sympathetic, I wanna be understanding, but this woman has affected my life so much that I'm just no longer in a position of really being understanding, because she continually makes the daily choice to be the way she is. Because I always hear like people saying that, we need to understand our parents, they grew up in a different time, in a different way. They also didn't have certain things, but I grew up with a narcissistic mother who emotionally abused me. Here I am in my late 20s making the decision to be different. Sure, I wanna understand that, yeah, maybe there were certain barriers in her life, certain limitations in her life, but up until the age that she's at, she's continually making the decision to be the way she is. And that's on her. That's on nobody else. Yes, her past, her childhood might have influenced and affected who she became, but the fact that she is still that person today, it's her choice. It's my mother's choice to be the person she is. That's why I'm at a position where I lack to understand and sympathize with her as much. And this is coming from a person who would always sympathize with her mother. Like, I was that person. Like, I always just felt for my mother. Everything was about my mother, and it's so sad to see my sister in that position now, because I have stepped out of the bubble, and I'm just like looking at my sister being that person, always worrying about our mother, because that is what an emotional and narcissistic mother does. It's about the children worrying about her. Like, everything, like, is she okay? How is she doing? Oh my word, like, my mother is old. She's probably just gonna have a heart attack from this. And she says those things. Like, the number of times my mother has said, like, if maybe I don't wake up tomorrow, or if I die, or even just mentioning, like, she, even that's part of her emotional abuse, to keep you in this place where you are always thinking about her, because, oh my goodness, what if my mother dies? Because, I confronted her about this, and then she thought about it too much, because that's like always my sister's worry, that my mother thinks too much and personalizes things, which is true. And maybe she just might not wake up the next day, because she thought about all of this too much, and it might give her a heart attack. And that's a genuine worry, and a valid worry that my sister should have. But what my sister, just like I failed to see for so many years, what my sister is failing to see is that my mother is using all of that. She's saying all of these things. She's even dangling death like around us so that we feel bad for her, so that we always think about her, and it's never about us. It's always about her. It's always about her feelings. It's always about her well-being, not about our well-being, not about our feelings, even though she inflicts pain constantly in our lives. But it should never be about us. It should always be about our mother.